Sometimes you'll see this device labeled as the Google Home Mini 2nd Edition. Sometimes you'll see it named the Google Nest Mini. Sometimes you'll just see it named the Mini. But whatever it's called, there are some key differences between this and the original Google Home Mini. Hello Automators, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life, and today I'm going to take the frustration out of automation by giving you some clarity around these two devices. Now, I'm not just going to explain the key differences, which I will do, but I will also explain how some of the upgrades from the original version, the Google Home Mini, help you as an automator and as someone who has a smart home with this second device. Henceforth, we're just going to call it the Nest Mini, and this one will be called the Home Mini as we roll through the video. Let's start with look and feel because that's pretty easy. Now, in terms of the two devices, they look exactly the same size and they are the same size. And really the big difference between the two of them, this is a new color called Sky Blue. Now, unfortunately, you lose one of my favorite colors from the original Home Mini devices, which was the aqua color. So that's kind of being replaced by this Sky Blue. The other big difference between these devices as I picked them up, you can see the mounting hardware right here, and that's really about it in terms of the physical differences. There's one more with the power adapter that we'll talk about in a little bit. There are 8 additional grams of weight in the Nest Mini over the Google Home Mini, and that in itself really doesn't matter, but there are hardware upgrades that do matter to you. And the first one to talk about, is really that speaker. And this device sounded from the very first time I heard it, it sounded a little bit tinny, a little bit hollow, and I think it continues to sound that way, especially as we get better devices. Now, the Nest Mini sounds, according to Google, 100% better on that low end, and I would agree with that evaluation. But what it means to you is that you can sit and listen to a much more well-rounded device when you play music on the Nest Mini. I don't think you're going to feel like you're missing a lot in terms of audio quality, especially if you go and use the new feature, which is available on both of these, to stereo pair the devices. It's going to sound really good. So let's have a listen in the difference between these two. Now, there is another hardware upgrade in terms of a third far field microphone on the new Nest Mini. So this is over and above the two that are sitting here on the Google Home Mini, but what you have really is the intention that this device can hear you better. And while I haven't really noticed a difference here in terms of these two devices hearing me, what I have noticed is it's a little bit better again, and I noticed this with the Nest Hub Max over the Nest Hub and some of the older devices, is the accuracy has improved a little bit. And the other thing is, I think that third microphone is intended to hear you better when the music is playing and it's really loud in the room. What's the time?
It's 10:58.
What's the weather?
It's -7 and partly cloudy. Today, it'll be mostly sunny with a forecasted high.
There's also a new feature on the Nest Mini called Ultrasonic Sensing, and really what this means to you is some controls, or all the controls show up, the little LEDs. As you approach this speaker and the music is playing, it will show you where the controls are, so it's an easy, quick tap if you'd like to adjust the volume or start and stop music. And that's something that is also different here. You can tap to adjust the volume, but you can start and stop music here by tapping on the top of the Nest Mini. That was an original feature here, but was actually removed from the Google Home Mini due to a security concern, and it never came back. But it is there here, and that ultrasonic capability, that sensing ability to know when you've come up close to the device, is going to be used in a couple of other ways going forward that this device just isn't going to be able to keep up with. See, as we go into the next version of what Google calls the helpful home, what we're going to see is more and more monitoring being done by your Google Nest and Google Home products. Now, the Nest Aware subscription service has really been repaired, what I'll say. You used to spend a lot of money on the Nest cameras to get them to record to the cloud. Now, what's also coming into that is some of the sensing features that are available on devices like the Nest Mini and the new Nest Hub Max, and actually on the Nest Hub, the existing version of this. Now, so you're going to be able to sense when people come up to a device, and let's say you're gone and your feature is turned on, that basically you're out of the home and it's guarding your home. It's going to be able to sense that someone is in the space, and it's also going to be listening with those 3 far field microphones. And all of this can be done locally with some of the new hardware processing capabilities that is here on the Nest Mini. That's a new quad-core 64 ARM CPU sitting on this device, and its intention is, well, I think it's like 3 or 4-fold here, and there's probably a couple I don't know about, but on the Nest Mini, the intention is to be able to do some processing locally. So some of those alerts that we talked about that will look a lot like Amazon's Guard capability, where they can monitor your home. On top of that, there will be local processing capabilities in terms of executing things in your smart home, and basic requests will also be available locally on this device. So there's a ton of this local control coming to this device that just will not be possible here with the Google Home Mini. And what that means to you as a smart home owner or someone who owns one of these devices is speed. So there's always a delay whenever I ask for something to happen in my smart home, and you've seen it probably hundreds of times in your own home already, and that's because this goes to the cloud. But with some of these local processing capabilities, that will happen very quickly, just with your internal network being the speed at which you can execute those commands. Now, those last few things, the Nest Aware, the local processing, the local handling of many of your requests, those things are still theoretical. Google has not actually put out that capability yet. We will see it in early to mid 2020 is the expectation at this point. So keep that in mind when I talk about those things. It's still theoretical. There are some differences in connectivity. Now, there's no difference in terms of Wi-Fi. 2.4 and 5 gigahertz connections are capable here on the Google Home Mini, and you have that same capability here, but Bluetooth has been upgraded. So this is 4.1 Bluetooth on the Home Mini and 5.0 Bluetooth. And the reason I mention that is it's security, it's privacy. It is important to have this newer version of Bluetooth, something that a lot of people talk about being a concern from a security point of view is some of these older Bluetooth devices. Now, there's also a little bit of a difference in terms of the Chromecast ability. So right now, when you go and you look at the website, the tech specs here, Google's very careful with the language here. So they say this is a Chromecast capable device, and it has Chromecast audio built in. This has Chromecast built in, and what that means is both sides of the capability, so video and music. Now, today you still cannot cast to a Nest Mini with music and video, but the hardware capability is there. And what that might mean here in the very near future, this is kind of what I'm expecting, we should see the ability to either cast the audio from video files from, say, YouTube and all of their different casting services, and then maybe cast the video to another Chromecast built-in device at the same time and be able to use these as home theater speakers like we've seen Amazon do with their Fire TV sticks and Echo devices. There's one key difference, and I just touched on the power adapter situation here early on in the video. There is a big difference here. This is a USB power adapter. So you can see right there, that's a USB into the back of that device. Now here is a pretty standardized, this is what you get on the Nest Hub, the Nest Hub Max. This is the same power adapter. And what this means is a lot of people were powering their Google Home Mini by a USB port. And unfortunately, this had some unintended consequences. And I want to explain why Google went ahead and made this design adjustment. So when Google put this out, a lot of people were really excited that they could go and use all kinds of USB adapters to power this device. And I think it was a good move by Google at the time. But what ended up happening is people started underpowering this device. And there's lots of USB adapters that say 1 amp. Well, this is 1.8 amps, and so is this actually, or I think it is. But regardless, this is 1.8 amps at 5 volts. And so what happened is a lot of people underpowered the device just a little bit, in some cases just at that 1.5 amp level. And what it did is kind of twofold. So the voice assistant started acting up, and that's because you were slightly underpowering the processor. You're slightly underpowering everything on this device. And in lots of cases, people ask me, why is my Google Home rebooting whenever I play music really loudly on the device? And the reason was you were actually dropping the power enough to have it shut off. And the other thing that this did is it caused hardware failure. So in both cases, Google was getting bad press by people underpowering their device. So what do you do in the next version of the product? You eliminate those bad press components. So yes, a lot of people have complained about this. They don't like it, but what I hope you're hearing as I go through all of this is that the hardware has been significantly improved over here. That is what has happened. And while the speaker is the initial thing that you will get access to that is way better, what will happen over the next year or so is that the reason to upgrade will become really clear as some of these other new features roll out. So I do really like this approach by Google in terms of a market strategy. You can still have this device. This device is going to continue to work. But if you want some of these new features, you will need this new hardware. And that is really the reason they went to a second edition. It was to support these upgrades in terms of their platform, in terms of their smart home capabilities, and really to support the future and those features that maybe they didn't know about when they first released this first Google Home Mini. So I hope this has explained the whole situation to you. I hope it's really clear. If it's not, go ahead, leave comments down below, questions. We answer as many as we can. Usually we get to every one. Otherwise, if you need to understand a little bit more about this device, I have a playlist up on screen that will help you with that. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching. And of course, don't hate, automate.